Good evening. My name is Tiffany Harris, and tonight I'll be giving an informative speech on living with the pain, understanding sickle cell disease. Tonight I'll be presenting to Preston Harris and Gia Harris. Did you know that sickle cell disease affects over 100,000 people in the United States? Mostly African Americans. However, even with these numbers, sickle cell remains one of the most underfunded genetic conditions. While medical explanations often focus on the biology of the disease, the daily toll on individuals and families living with sickle cell is often overlooked. As a mother of a child with sickle cell disease, I've seen firsthand how it affects not only the person living with sickle cell disease, but the entire family. My daughter once told me, "Mommy, I'm always in pain. Even when it's not really bad, it's still there, right under the surface. I just learned to live with it." That statement stays with me. I carry it with me. It captures the quiet, chronic suffering of many with this disease and what they endure every day. In today's speech, I will explain what sickle cell disease is, the different forms of sickle cell disease, how it affects the daily life and family of people living with the disease, and why raising awareness is so crucial. Sickle cell disease is a hereditary blood disorder where the red blood cells become crescent-shaped, stiff, sticky, which creates a lack of flow in the blood vessels, which creates a lack of oxygen flowing through the blood vessels. Normally and typically, red blood cells are round and flexible and flow through the blood vessels without getting stuck and allowing oxygen to flow freely. However, in sickle cell patients, those sickle cells or the crescent-shaped cells become stuck on the blood vessels, creating blockages of the cells which do not allow oxygen to flow, which creates fatigue and creates pain crisis. My daughter once told me that it feels like 1,000 needles dragging through. There are different types of sickle cell. The most common and severe form is sickle cell SS. This occurs when a patient receives a hemoglobin S trait from one parent and another hemoglobin S trait from another parent. The second form of sickle cell is sickle cell SC. It's common, however, it's a milder case of sickle cell, resulting in fewer pain crises throughout the year. This happens when a patient receives one hemoglobin C gene from one parent and one hemoglobin S gene from another parent. The least common and likely form of sickle cell that we see is beta thalassemia plus. This one usually varies in its severity depending on the genetic mutation. Last but not least, there is the sickle cell trait. The sickle cell trait is when a person carries the sickle cell trait in their disease. Despite contrary beliefs, sickle cell carriers do experience some forms of pain, fatigue, and a few complications, not as severe as the people with the disease. However, it's still there. This disease is usually diagnosed through newborn screening and blood tests. Caring for a child with sickle cell disease often means frequent hospital visits, missed days at work or school, and ongoing emotional stress. Parents must constantly monitor for signs of crises such as fever and pain episodes, which can escalate quickly and require immediate medical attention. The daily routine of the family life School, work, play are constantly interrupted by medical emergencies or fatigue. It's like living on high alert. However, what's usually not discussed in sickle cell disease is the mental health toll that it takes on patients. Most sickle cell patients are usually impacted. Many children develop depression or anxiety once they notice the differences they face from their peers. However, despite all of these facts and the number of Americans affected by sickle cell disease and living in a state of chronic pain, sickle cell still receives far less funding and public attention than other genetic disorders like cystic fibrosis. In 2022, cystic fibrosis, affecting fewer overall Americans, receives 3 times the federal funding per patient than sickle cell disease. These type of disparities have created huge gaps in access to advanced treatments and community resources. Increased awareness and equitable research funding are essential to improving the long-term overall lives of people living with sickle cell disease. Sickle cell disease is more than a medical diagnosis. It is a lifelong journey that affects the entire family. Understanding the different forms of the disease, as well as the impact they have on the emotional and daily life, is crucial to offering support. My daughter's words, "I just learned to live with it," is the reality for many children and adults in America. They deserve more than endurance. They deserve compassion, care, and a stronger voice in the healthcare system. Through education, advocacy, and empathy, we can help lift the burden sickle cell disease places on families every day. Thank you.